जला देगा भाई तेरा, पूरी दुनिया जला देगा भाई तेरा। यहाँ खुद नहीं आए तुम लाए गए हो, बेटा मेरे आगे तेरे जैसे आए गए बहुत, चल बाय बाय बाय। जो किसी की नहीं मानते, जो किसी पे ना ध्यान दे, होता सफल वो तेरे।
That's good.
Before that, Jana, do you know my name correctly? Can you spell it?
Your name is Sparsh, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, I was just asking in case like you might have some problem with the accent.
That's good. That's good. Look, some people can't spell my name, although they're Americans, and I don't think it should be so difficult, but they don't know if I'm Jane or whoever.
Yeah, actually, I misspelled your name as well in the live session because
but it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I was taking it by the actual sound of J, so it was actually Jana.
Yes, but well, you know what? In Spain, most of my friends called me Jana because that's how the people from that region spell things. So, and then some Spanish people also called me Jana, just normal. But it's very weird if Americans start calling me Jana or something like that because it sounds like a totally different name. And then I don't respond because I don't relate to myself.
Right. So that's fine. I'm Sparsh, you are Jana, and we're going to talk about things.
Good.
And apart from that, is there any feedback that you got on that live session that you uploaded, like something that you want to build upon that? That we can have in this video, like that would make it more attractive.
I think it is very, very interesting to see that we live in very different places and we had a very different background and we're not even the same generation of people, but that it's very positive to see that many people in many places are seeing the same things concerning, the position of women in the West or in many countries where the law doesn't forbid me anymore to do anything a man can do, but we're being victimized like we were weak people who need special treatment, which I don't really think it's true. But I think it will go very, very smoothly. We won't have any issues with that.
Sure. All right. So I'll be starting the recording now. Okay. It has been started already. Yeah. So where's the camera? The camera is here. So I welcome everyone to my YouTube channel. Today we are here with a very special guest, and she is Jana Herde from Germany, and she is a father and daughter counseling expert, and she helps the families in Europe, like fathers and daughters, to reunite with each other who have separated due to some reason, due to family reasons, due to other societal concerns. And she is doing a pretty good job in that field. And so we have just brought her on board, and we are going to let Jana do her part by communicating what she feels about all this message and how she came upon this idea that she wants to do this. And let's hear from Jana. Welcome aboard, Jana.
Thank you for letting me be here, for having me. I'm always very happy to join also invitations that come from all over the world, because this is the magic, right, of the internet. Yes, you're right. I mean, I started a few years ago thinking about myself and how I grew up as a fatherless daughter, actually, which was quite common, or has been sadly quite common in the last decades in many parts of the Western world, that kids grow up fatherless, not because the father passes away, also because people separate, the father doesn't stick around for various reasons and choices. So at some point I decided that I had to use my gift and my talent at communicating with people and helping people find the things they really have the power to change in this exact let's say arena of fathers and daughters who don't live together, who are not in touch anymore, and help the fathers reconnect with their daughters, because I think the fathers need to take the responsibility on that one and help the daughters when it comes to reconnection. And I'm really not a psychologist, although of course I'm very interested in the topic. I'm mostly self-taught, but I guess my own life experience throughout the last 2 decades of my life, my upbringing and my ongoing research and interest really brought me to develop my own method of coaching the fathers
Exactly.
and to go back with the daughters.
Yes, personal experience holds a lot of value in the field of consultancy and like helping people with issues, right? It holds it holds a status above par than having the usual bookish psychology knowledge. Like it's a plus, but personal experience is what even I look for when I talk to some people regarding any issue. So I make sure that those people have been there and were actually doing that particular thing and they have been through it. That's why that is the only way how people like you would be able to help others better, because you have already gone through that tragedy.
Yes, it is actually a very interesting point. I mean, now and then I get the question from people from America or from the UK, and they ask
Yes.
me, where did you get your certification? And I say, well, actually, my life and my
Yes,
willingness to find a solution to this is my
exactly.
certification. I don't know even if it exists. If someone actually has one, I would actually
Exactly.
love to know. I would be very interested. And I said, I really, every time I build coaching material for a
Yes,
father, I do it because I get in touch with them. I see personally what solutions they need, how they learn. And my talent actually is, among others, I hope to have more than one talent, to really adapt what I'm going to teach to that person's need and way to function. So I
Mm.
don't really know where you can get a certification to do that. I didn't know before I started if this was going to work. And I didn't
Yeah,
know if there was anybody doing the same thing. But I honestly didn't care because I felt that I should try. And it went pretty
exactly.
well. And I've come to
Yes.
put more perfection and to tweak the method. And I'm very happy that I can help people. I mean, if I can help a few people already reconnect, and
Yeah.
daughters not to go through what I went through, and fathers learn something my father could not learn, sadly, that would be
Mm.
already a big reward. So it is really a
Exactly.
lot of life experience, and most people actually don't care. I mean, I never had a father ask me, what is your education on this? So I know if I want to work with you. They're always interested in knowing, can you help me solve my problem? Yes. Okay, let's
Yes.
go. So that's
Exactly.
mostly people's idea.
Yes. Because that is what brings people who have been affected by this particular situation. It is usually the pain that drives us, right? When we have been through that anguish, through that sorrow, through that grief of separation, of living away from people whom we call our family, and that is when the person begins to find out the possibilities and the answers to their problems. And it is like a great initiative by you that I feel, because yours,
Good.
as yeah, just the way you said that not many people are in this field, right, who do this exclusive father daughter reunification process really well. So I was really inspired when came across your Instagram profile, and I saw all those quotations and the feedback of your clients who have been working with you. And I was right, like I was genuinely happy. Like, and now,
Thank
just as
you.
you said, that that when you didn't really cared if people would come up for it or not, and you just did it anyway, right? And that is
Yes,
what
I
I
tried.
yes. Yes. And that is
Yes,
what we call is a person's unique gift to this world, right? You came into this world and you decided to gift something from your soul, from your experience of this world, this universe that we see, and you decided to give it out. And no matter like how it goes, but it is important that you carry on this till the end of your life,
yeah,
isn't it?
it really is. It really is. That's why sometimes I see so much the difference on perspective on people, because people like you see it and say, oh wow, she decided to do this, she must have a reason that she wants to do this, because if it was only about finding a profession to make a living,
Yes,
I could do something
exactly.
much simpler that doesn't require maybe much experience, that I can just go learn and do, that is more
Exactly.
predictable. And that's why when people, it's not a lot, I must say, but now and then I get comments from people saying like, oh, you're just trying to make money. out of fathers suffering. And I said, look, if it was about the money, I wouldn't have done this, because I couldn't predict any success. I didn't know how
Exactly.
it would go, how people would react. So I didn't really care how much money I would make or not, because I knew that I really enjoy doing this. I enjoy talking
Exactly.
to fathers, talking to fatherless daughters. I enjoy very much sharing my experience, getting knowledge from other people who are dedicating
Exactly.
themselves also to helping fathers. And then some people say, oh, but why don't you help mothers? And then I say, okay, it's a valid question, but if any woman goes into her computer and on the internet, she finds a lot of help for mothers, especially in Western countries. Go to Germany, to
Exactly.
Spain, to the US, to Canada, to the UK. Every woman will find a kind of association that helps mothers, people
Exactly.
specialized in helping. But fathers who are
They are
missing
helpless.
their daughters, they
Yes.
don't find anything. I mean, it's starting now to be a bit
Exactly.
more talked about, but it's still very unpopular. So
Yes.
I always say, if it was about making money with it, I mean, I hope that I become more and more successful, because the more
Obviously.
successful I am, the better resources I can build to help
Yes.
more people, which is what
Yes.
inspires me.
Exactly. And we should, like, people like you should not be shy of the fact that you charge money for doing something good to the society, right?
That's
There
it.
are so many people, there are so many people who are literally ripping this earth, right? Just for their slow benefits, just for cash receipts of money, right? And they're contributing nothing to this world, right? And yet, if we try to change something for the better, and we try to make a sustainable business model out of it, I think every person must try to do this, right? And I also like came across a quotation in it was in Paulo Coelho's book, The Alchemist. If you might have read
Yeah.
it, since you were in
Yes,
Spain.
I did. I did.
Yeah. So in that book, there's a quotation that says that let me think. I forgot the quote.
No problem. There is a lot of good sentences in those books of
Yes.
Paulo Coelho. I will let
Yeah.
you think. While I let you think, I remember who gave me that book. It was actually a gift from the first boyfriend I had as a girl when I was 17, 18. And it was a
Okay.
very lovely young man. And that was a gift he gave me, this book, so I could read it. And I still have it. So very dear memory for me.
See, I can bring past memories back. I know.
Hmm.
I can predict things.
Yes.
So the quotation was something like I don't know. I forgot it.
When you want
It
something, the whole universe conspires so you can get it, or something like that, maybe?
No, there was another
No?
one actually.
It will
It
come
was
back.
yeah, it was related to when you were saying those words, like when you were telling that thing. It just clicked to me, and that I had to say this thing. I had to say this thing, and now it's gone. So
Ah,
let
so
it
it's
go.
my fault. I know.
No, none of your fault.
I take the
You
blame.
are awesome the way you are.
Thank you. So are you.
So
And come on, it's great. I mean, you're very young. You're much younger than I am, and it doesn't matter. We can communicate, we can share, and that's what I tell people all the time. It doesn't really matter where you come
hmm,
from or how old you are. There is young people who maybe don't have 20 years of experience in something, but they have a very fresh view that you can use for many things. And then there is people like me who maybe doesn't dominate a few things like young people do, but we have
yeah,
another experience. So
exactly. Now I have the quotation in my head. I got it.
great.
So the quotation was that the universe, whenever the earth has to change, it would not be changed by people sitting in front of screens. It would not be changed by people who want to do something for the money, right? It is changed when people sit together around a fire and they talk. That is
Yes.
when the world changes, right?
Hmm.
And what you are doing right now and what I intend to do is the same thing,
Hmm.
right? Joker also said the same
Yes.
thing in Batman. He said that it's not about the money, right? When I
That's
rob this
it.
Gotham City, yeah, when I rob the Gotham City, it's not
Yes.
about the money, it's about the message.
Yes, look, and it's sometimes very difficult to make people understand that those quotes that we hear so many wealthy
Hmm.
people say, like, look, money doesn't really give you the greatest fulfillment or plain happiness. And people say, oh yeah, he says that because he's rich, you know.
Hmm.
But no,
Yeah.
what I loved is when I heard a lady who is almost my age. She's in her late 30s. She might be 39, 40,
Okay.
and she actually is a young girl who grew up in Russia in quite
Okay.
poor environment, but she had a very
Hmm.
strong mother who also had to do things alone because the father actually left. So she grew up
Okay.
very poor. She had to work
Hmm.
from early on as a child. And later she was discovered by a guy who said, oh, you're tall and you're very pretty. You should go to Paris, you know, to work in the fashion industry.
Hmm.
And they took her there. She took the risk. She didn't speak any other language than Russian. And she became
Hmm.
really successful. And today she has several businesses that do charity for children, for disabled people. I mean, she gives a lot. And she
Yeah.
said, money doesn't make you happy, but only rich people know. That's
Yes.
why so many rich people say it, because I've been poor and I've been
Yeah.
really rich, and I know that the money itself doesn't make the biggest difference in your well-being, in your feeling,
Yes.
how you feel about yourself. It makes a
Yes.
difference, of course, in giving you security. You know, your children will have everything they need, so that's good.
Exactly.
but
Yes.
um but she said, you can that she has met so many great rich people who are not happy because maybe it's not what they wanted to do, or the activity is not enjoyable anymore. So once you can pay
Exactly.
your bills and your necessities are covered, the rest is really why you're actually doing this. And I decided very consciously in my late 30s that I was going to dedicate time and energy into this, because I
Yes.
really think there is a necessity and a possibility, and something that I have, I think, is useful for it.
So Yana, why, like, how did you come upon this idea that you wanted to do this thing? Like, what were the circumstances? What were the situations that
Mm,
made you ponder about this? That we need to help fathers and daughters reunite. Like, what were the series of events that happened in your life? Would you share some light on that?
yeah, even always an important question when it comes to what I do, because
Exactly.
it's important to understand where it all came from. So I was born in Germany by German parents, and
Okay.
my mother and my father were not married, which they didn't really care about that much at that time. Let's say in the
Hmm.
late 70s, early 80s, people who were modern, you know, didn't
Yeah.
often care that much about marriage. So
Okay.
so they had me because they really wanted to have a family. But once I was like 3 months old, very small, my mother decided that that relationship wasn't going to work. She had her reasons, it seems, and she
Okay.
left. She decided to put me up on her own without really
Okay.
cutting the contact with my father. But she saw very quickly that my father wasn't really consistent in keeping that father-daughter relationship. But somehow she said, well, if he doesn't want to, he doesn't want to. I'm just doing it by myself. And when I was 3 years old, my mom decided to travel through Europe, to go to
Okay.
the south of Europe where it was more sunny weather. And she wanted to just travel with her small daughter and with a friend of hers, a lady friend who came with us.
Okay.
And it was a great experience. I mean, she bought like a little how do you call it, Volkswagen, you know, the German
Yeah.
car
Yeah.
brand, you know,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
VW,
VW.
that's it.
Yes. Yes.
And
Yes.
in
Yes.
the 80s they had like the first model that was a bit like rounded, and
Okay.
inside we had a bed, we had a little fridge, we had, my mother made it very cozy and very nice, which was
Hmm.
quite common for people to do back then. And then we drove to the Mediterranean, to the Spanish coastline, and
Hmm.
um and she liked it so much there that she decided to stay there. She bought a house and she stayed there with me. So I grew up in a very tiny village where we had a lot of sheeps, and you know, we were outside all
Hmm.
day. 100
Yeah.
people in the village. So I guess many Indians who grew up in little villages can know
Yeah.
what I mean. You know, very little
Yeah.
people, everybody knows everybody. You have a
Yes.
garden, you grow food. So that's how I was brought up, which was very great. but I did not have a father. So
Yes.
I knew that I was different from most of the school children because I didn't have a dad around.
Okay.
On one hand,
So
I felt
so
normal.
yeah. So Jana, most of the children who used to study with you, they had a father.
Yes, most of the parents were married and lived together.
Okay.
It wasn't there in the village. It wasn't still that normal in the early 80s that people would get divorced. We had,
Okay.
of course, divorced people, but it wasn't a big city. It
Okay.
was like a region with villages. All children were going by bus to the same school because my
Yes.
village was so small. We didn't have a school anymore.
Yes. Yes.
Because
Okay.
nobody would go. So it wasn't that common, and people would see that my mother was different. She was on her
Hmm.
own. She dressed
Yeah.
differently. She had very long hair. We were different
Yeah.
than the rest. I was the only foreign child in a school of 500 kids. So
Yeah.
I was the different one in
Hmm.
many aspects. Yes.
Okay.
Um, and first you think it's normal because if you grow
Yeah.
up like that, for you, there's no issue. But when I
Yeah.
turned about 6 or 7, I started to ask more questions. Why does
Yeah.
actually my father never visit? Or why did we meet him at this place, but he never comes? Or why do these kids always have a father at home and mine doesn't seem to be interested? And
Hmm.
of course, my mother tried to comfort me in some way, and she had to tell me to not expect anything from my father. So if he would show up, it was good, but if he didn't show up, I shouldn't be sad expecting him to show up because maybe he would not.
Okay.
So I had to learn very early on that sadly, um, adults like fathers can make very
Hmm.
weird decisions that I don't understand. I could see and feel abandoned because, in a way,
Yes.
you feel abandoned. You feel that there is
Exactly.
something wrong about you. And I
Hmm.
felt it was very awkward that if I met him I remember a wedding of a friend where he was invited and we were too. So I saw him, but
Hmm.
he didn't make the move to actually go and to visit me somewhere. So the events where I met him from age 3 till age
Hmm.
18 were maybe 5 times that I can remember, and it was always only for a few hours, or once I could go a few days with him where he was living with his mother who had a house with a garden, and my mom said, well, it's vacation, you can take your daughter with you. And it was
Okay.
nice, but I thought, well, how can it be like nice and my
Yes.
father acts like everything's normal and then he just disappears for years? So
Hmm.
it is an awkward situation which wasn't normal. And that's why I actually I I had a very biased view on men and on fathers. So what I
Exactly.
learned in my family is that men were not responsible, that men did
Yeah.
not provide, that men would
Hmm.
not even pay support to the mother to help her with the expenses, that men would just leave. And that's why I really believe till I was over 25 years old or so, I really believe that
Yeah.
fathers did not suffer that much if they don't see their kids, because for me, they seemed to be totally fine and they didn't really complain about it openly. And well, I have to
Exactly.
mention that when I was 7, my mom had a new relationship and my sister was born. And
Okay.
yes, and that relationship of my stepdad and my mother didn't last for a long number of years. And he did maintain a relationship with my sister. He always called, he visited her regularly, more regularly. He
Hmm.
sent her presents, but
Okay.
he was also not really committed to
Hmm.
be more stable. And he also didn't have a really a relationship that was based on respect to my mother. I mean, he also was very little responsible. He was mostly away. So I really had bad examples of men growing
Okay.
up.
So Jana, like you told about your father. So your father used to live in Spain.
No, he lived in Germany and we lived in
Okay.
Spain. So he was more far away. But there was a
Okay.
couple of years where he even did live in Spain, but we didn't see him either. So
Okay.
his interest and his priority was not really to see his daughter.
Okay. So did your father remarry?
My father had two more long-lasting relationships. One of the ladies he was with after my mom, he was married to for a number of
Okay.
years. And
Okay.
the last serious relationship he had was with another lady, and he had children with all of his long-lasting relationships. So I actually have three half brothers from my father's side. Um,
Okay.
and I didn't meet them all till I wasn't almost an adult. I mean, one of them, the eldest, I always knew, and the other
Okay.
two I knew later in life.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Okay. All right. So after all these experiences, like being
Yeah.
brought up in Spain and having known all the um, that the view that you developed about men, that they were
Mm,
not responsible, that they were stupid, and maybe that they just leave, they don't have any emotionally attachment to their
mm,
kids. They are not like that, and they don't even complain if they are sad, right?
mm.
So
Yeah, I mean, I saw divorced fathers out there, and
yeah.
because in Western society it became, with the years that I grew up, it became so normal to have people divorce, and the father ended up having maybe visitation with his kids twice a
Yes.
month, and the
Hmm.
mother was like the primary caretaker.
Caretaker.
So,
Yes.
so I thought that the fathers, because they didn't openly complain about it that much that I could see, I thought it was okay with them, because fathers seem not to miss their children that much, because that's what I learned from my dad, from my sister's father, that they didn't seem to really need to be with their kids all the time. It was, of course, a very biased, conditioned view, but that's
Yeah.
what I learned. That was my playground as a kid.
Exactly. And even majority of the people still today, like women today, even have such kind of point of view, the one that you just mentioned. Like
Mm,
majority of them still believe that men don't have feelings, men don't care about anything, they are irresponsible. And it kind of shows like how biased this uh, opinion is. Like when we are
mm,
only listening to one side of the fact, it is only then that a person could say things like this, right?
that's
And
it.
so like how did you transition after this, like since you were almost 25 when you realized all this, that this is how things were?
Yes.
So what was the
Um,
turning point? How did you like realize this?
it
Maybe.
took me, of course, many years.
Okay.
You have to take into account always that being located in Europe, in Western Europe or Southern Europe even, in the 80s and 90s, the whole idea that, women needed to be valued, and like the third wave of feminism coming up, and those views that men just needed to put up with it. If you get divorced, okay, that's the way it goes, just deal with it.
Mm.
Those views were very grounded, and you saw it in the media, you heard it in school. um so it kind of even supported the way that I grew up with. It didn't really challenge it that much. So I would think, oh, but I just saw something completely different here. So that's why I
Mm.
think it took me so long to really get
Yeah.
behind it. But one thing I will tell you, in spite of having that very negative view of men being fathers,
Yes.
I never actually experienced major problems with boys or young men growing up. I started, let's say, dating boys quite late, which I think is
Okay.
completely fine. I was already 17, 18, and it wasn't really
Mhm.
my priority, but it was good. I
17.
had a lot. Yes,
Yeah.
it's
17.
good. I mean, yeah,
17 and 18
17.
is early in India.
Well, in Europe it's normal, but in some countries
Yeah.
nowadays it would even be considered late. But let's say I was very cautious, I took it
Hmm.
seriously, so I wouldn't
Yeah.
just go out with anybody. Um,
Exactly.
so the thing is, that I always met very nice guys. So I always felt that I was treated with a lot of respect. I had a lot of friends that were girls and boys too. And
Exactly.
so I saw that the boys or the young men I met on a friendship level or that I liked, I didn't see they were evil guys or against women or anything. So I always saw that
Exactly.
there were very two sides.
Yes.
And then once I was in my mid-20s, I remember one event, especially when I was 27, and I already had a
Okay.
university degree. I had failed at
Okay.
finding a soulmate or a man that would really commit to me or get married. I wasn't able really to get that done because in
Hmm.
my world of highly educated academic
People.
people, there weren't
Exactly.
many young men who wanted to get married. So it was very hard
Exactly.
for me to accept that because I wanted to have a family actually very badly, more than I actually would say to people, because
Exactly.
it wasn't modern, it wasn't cool to say, oh, but I would like to get married and have kids at 25. People would say you're crazy. Why do you even want to do that? You have to value your independence, you know? You're an educated woman, go and have a career. But I didn't know what to do, what I wanted to do in life yet. I was very
Right.
disoriented. So I had traveled the world at 27, not the whole world, but I had done my
Okay.
big travels. I had had a few relationships. I was
Okay.
educated, everything, but I was very dissatisfied. And I remember
Hmm.
a friend of mine who was a British father, a
Okay.
friend of my
Okay.
family, and he had several children who he had a great relationship with, although he was divorced, but great relationship with his kids. And he said,
Okay.
Jana, he said, look, um, I know you have so many qualities and you still have so much to do in life, but you know what? You're angry because your father didn't care and you have somehow still that anger in you. But you know, actually, most fathers do care. And you should go and try to, you know, to have a different outlook maybe on it and try to heal that
Hmm.
anger that you have because it's going to
Yeah.
make you very miserable and you'll not be able
Exactly.
to get over this. And that was like a turning point, and that's why I
Hmm.
remember it so vividly. I
Yeah.
remember where we were, what we were doing, and then I started to look at things differently, to listen to people's arguments differently. I started
Hmm.
to remember when men would say things that would clash a little bit against my view, and I
Yeah.
thought, well, yes, they I might be actually wrong and very biased. And then when I was 28 and I got pregnant with my daughter,
Okay.
and then I was married, it all was very quickly, and sadly I was also divorced very quickly. So I was super
Okay.
frustrated because I thought, my God, I don't seem to be smart enough to find a better way. What am I actually doing? But
Yeah.
then I decided that actively I needed to work on my personal and spiritual development on a daily
Exactly.
basis, even though I was a single mom and it wasn't the ideal life that I wanted to have, that I was going
Hmm.
to devote my time to try to make a living, to try to be a present, good parent,
Hmm.
and to find in myself a better way so I could prevent my daughter from repeating the cycle, because I saw it was a cycle that was
Yes.
repeated over and over again, and someone
Yes.
needed to
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 break
cut
it.
it and
Exactly.
to yeah and to transform it into something different. And that's
Exactly.
where I found out my talent for coaching, my
Hmm.
love for empowering people to find
Okay.
solutions. And
Yeah.
later on I said, okay, coaching is one thing, but where is
Hmm.
the core issue that maybe I'm better at than anyone else? Something unique, because we're all unique human beings. So there must be
Exactly.
something I can do really well. And then
Yes.
I looked for help, for professional help. I met a lady coach from
Okay.
Switzerland
Okay.
who is an expert in that, in helping coaches find their core issue.
Right.
And we together found out that it was not a coincidence that a lot of fathers always ask me for advice with their children. and
Hmm.
and then I developed a strategy to help them, thinking about my own father, who still has failed to really reconnect with me on a better level. And I said, okay, if I could coach my father because he was a stranger and he was willing to learn, what would I tell him to do to reconnect with me as an adult? And based
Hmm.
on that, I developed my first coaching strategy. And today I have modified it 1,000 times, and I help fathers
Yes.
from around the globe that write in.
That's impressive. That's pretty impressive. The method that you just shared, that was a good one. Like, how would you try to convince your dad to connect with you? So that's a
Yes.
good way of strategizing things.
And it was hard,
So,
because I still, no, sorry, I just want to add this because it isn't easy
sure.
to switch from the point of, oh, my father has ruined a part of my life and my development, to think, wait a minute, this is
Hmm.
actually something that should be used for something. So it isn't for nothing.
Exactly.
So he actually could
Yes.
become, without him knowing, my best teacher. Like, okay, you weren't useful as a
Yes.
dad, but maybe this whole experience can be useful to save other people.
Yes. Exactly. You caught it in the exact vein, like you should have taken it. Like, it's a kind of a spiritual understanding of things, that everything that happens to us is for the advancement of our soul, right? The experiences that we have, it doesn't matter whether they are positive or negative, but what matters is our outlook of the situation, of the events that we have gone through, and what we have learned from it, and how we can benefit from them. Because
Hmm.
there's always an opportunity in adversity, and we just need to find it out, and you did that amazingly. So
Well, I'm still
that's
on the
impressive.
way. I'm still on the way. The journey we engage into with our soul is is one that
Exactly.
even Indian people often understand and verbalize better than Westerners do. Because I learned it, that my
Yes.
mother actually is an expert in the science of yoga, in the practice. She traveled to India several times to learn with masters
Yeah.
in India back in the day. I mean, that's what she
Yeah.
dedicated her life to. So she taught me that
That's great.
that once you engage in that journey of enlightenment, of advancement, of learning, that it ends up being a very narrow path that you have to go alone, because you'll not have even space to take someone else with you. You only can get inspired by someone
Exactly.
else to go, but you'll have to go on your own, and it won't be
Obviously.
easy. Nobody can
Yeah.
promise you that it's easy. So I'm still in the process,
Exactly.
of course. Hmm.
Obviously. And yes, it is actually this journey that we can accompany people on, right? If you are going through certain experiences in life, no doubt they will be tough, they will be having their uh, they will be demanding of you, the situations
Hmm.
and the circumstances that we all go through. And what all we have to offer for each other is our love, our care, our company, our shoulder,
Hmm.
that we are
Hmm.
always here to help you. In case you want to deal with things a different way, I can help you out. That's it. And I even personally, I used to think that um, like uh, I was earlier, about 3 to 4 years back, I used to be kind of an individualistic person. I always used to believe that I'm sufficient, I am a one man army, and I will do things on my own. I don't care about anyone else, no matter if someone supports me or not, but I'll do it. So and I used to get things done, no doubt. At that time I used to get things done, and even I still do, because whatever I'm doing, I'm still doing it on my own, whether it's a YouTube or whether it's anything, whether it's developing my own skills. It's a path on which I am walking alone, right? But
Hmm.
eventually I have started to realize that no one no one can ultimately be can ultimately go through life without touching others lives,
Yes.
right? We need other people in our lives, because the life alone is such a process that we need other people's help in it. And for
Yes,
that
that's
I
why.
yes and for that I actually have an example, that
Hmm.
there are in the animal kingdom, for example, if the young one of a dog or a cat or a elephant is born, so the young one stands up immediately, right? It stands
Mm,
up, it opens its eyes and starts sucking milk, right?
mm,
But in human beings, the human child is the only one that cannot stand up and go to its mother and start sucking milk,
mm.
which means
It
that humans
needs the
need
help.
care.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
it needs help,
Humans need a lot
right?
of care. Yes.
Exactly. So it means that humans need a lot of care, and animals really don't need care. That's why they're living the way they are, right? And
Mm,
because their life is suited to be individualistic, but we as humans need not be individualistic, right? It is not
Not
only about
always.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah, not always. Like it's not a one size fits all.
Mm.
Yeah, but
No.
that is the kind of message that I learned, that we need people in our lives that help us through the journey,
Mm.
and that is the same message that you can give out to the fathers and the daughters, right?
Mm.
No matter how abundant we are in our resources, in our food, in our places we live, in the air we breathe, and in the mansions we live, and the household that we serve, it doesn't really matter if we don't have the people who love and care for us, if we don't have people
Yes.
who provide us the guidance, who genuinely worry about us when we do not come back home at time. And
Mm.
that is what actually matters in life, I would say.
Yes, and talking about guidance, it's a really good point, and because it has it actually affects you in such a huge way to grow up fatherless, because you miss one part of that guidance. You miss 50% of your foundation. And I always talk about the child that is born and has like two invisible foundations that are like your legs. Like one leg is
Exactly.
father, one leg is mother. For me, it's like a graphic way to describe it for everyone. And
Yes.
if you imagine that one of these legs is missing, you start walking on a stick. One leg
Exactly.
is functioning, the other one is a stick. You always start to keep up with the rest of the people who have the two
Hmm.
foundation legs fully
Yes.
functioning, and you don't. So first you think it's normal because you don't know any different. It's like one that is born with a disability that cannot walk. For him, it will be
Yes.
his reality and his life. But then the more conscious you become and have a different sense of reality and compare, which is very unhealthy often to compare yourself to others, but you end up opening your eyes and seeing, and then you start seeing that you somehow feel detached from everyone else because
Exactly.
there is something that was missing. And as a teenager, you feel, okay, my father doesn't care, so I don't care either. You have your
Yeah.
mechanisms to feel
Yes.
that it's not bothering you that much because your brain has this way of protecting you from
Yes.
from feeling worse. But you're not still aware of all the things that you have missed out on, or that you couldn't develop in a very round, complete way, because the
Yes.
father guidance, the protection, the care, the wisdom wasn't there. And come on, I had a single mom who was a very capable, wise person. She really tried her best. She made a lot of
Yeah.
mistakes maybe, but also did a lot of it very good, I guess. But
Exactly.
when we look at fatherless children, and for example, you meet one similar to me who has gone to school, who has finished a degree, who has had several jobs, and doesn't seem to be that troubled, and you say, oh, but you turned out just fine. And then you look at it more closely and you see, no, I didn't just do fine. I felt a lot of
Hmm.
fear, a lot of anxiety, a lot of detachment from the rest of the world, a big lack of purpose, which made me very
Exactly.
sad and
Hmm.
distressed for my whole decade of my 20s, where I was maybe supposed to do something more with that God-given energy that we have in our 20s. And I did so many things, but without a clear direction, without knowing, always feeling very unfulfilled and feeling anxious in a way that wasn't normal at all. And then I, of course, lacked
Okay.
the feeling of protection from a father. So I often didn't know how
Hmm.
to handle certain things in a relationship. And all these things came in
So
part from not
yeah.
having a father.
Exactly. So Yana, if we were to briefly summarize all the symptoms, I would say, of growing up fatherless. So
Hmm.
what are the symptoms that a girl would can observe in herself, and she can attribute that those symptoms to a lack of a paternal or a father figure in her life? So what are those symptoms? How can a regular girl know that she
Mm.
needs guidance in her life?
Um, of course, if you're a fatherless daughter and you wonder why you tend to seek for male attention, or you need more
Hmm.
attention than would be usual, you have that
Exactly.
problem. That's normal. Or you see that you feel
Yes.
much more anxiety and feelings of depression already in your teens, which nobody knows where it comes from.
Hmm.
as a fatherless daughter,
Exactly.
you have much higher risk to end up depressed, to end up with health issues in general, to be not that, I mean, to not be socially adjusted that well. A lot of fatherless daughters and boys also suffer a lack of social adjustment, even as toddlers when they're 2 years.
कैसे बढ़ाएंगे? जल्दी से लाइक और शेयर ठोक दीजिए। संख्या 5000 क्रॉस हो जाए। महाकाल के आशीर्वाद से एकदम जो है लाइक और शेयर बनता है महाकाल के आशीर्वाद से। ठोकी दबा के लाइक और शेयर।